Hi, everybody. Before we begin, before I ask my distinguished panelists on stage, I would like to ask you to do something. If you have not yet registered and downloaded the application called Eventory, please do so because I will be asking you questions during this panel, not just my panelists. Be sure you have it on your phone so that you can participate in this discussion. And now I would like to introduce my distinguished panelists, which include Wojciech Kostro, the regional business leader for 3M for Eastern Europe. Mr. Wojciech. Dr. Aleksandra Przegalińska, who specializes in artificial intelligence at the Massachusetts Institute for Technology. Welcome. Pick a seat. Martyna Sztaba, the CEO of an impact-based startup called SyntOil. Hi, Martyna. Mr. Kamil Wyszkowski, the General Director of the UN Global Compact Poland. Surprise entrance from the side. And Mrs. Justyna Glusman from the city of Warsaw. Now, to start us off, if I could ask the tech team to please play the film.
That we'll be watching you. This is all wrong. I shouldn't be up here. I should be back in school on the other side of the ocean. Yet you all come to us young people for hope. How dare you? You have stolen my dreams and my childhood with your empty words, and yet I'm one of the lucky ones. People are suffering. People are dying. Entire ecosystems are collapsing. We are in the beginning of a mass extinction, and all you can talk about is money and fairy tales of eternal economic growth. How dare you? For more than 30 years, the science has been crystal clear. How dare you continue to look away and come here saying that you're doing enough when the politics and solutions needed are still nowhere in sight? You say you hear us and that you understand the urgency. But no matter how sad and angry I am, I do not want to believe that. Because if you really understood the situation and still kept on failing to act, then you would be evil, and that I refuse to believe.
Thank you, Greta. The statistics and what scientists are telling us sounds pretty dire. I'll read you some of the forecasts. The Intergovernmental Panel on Climate Change warns with high confidence that we will reach 1.5 degree of additional global warming by 2052. The speakers of the UN General Assembly this March talked about an 11-year deadline to prevent irreversible damage from climate change. And in October also of this year, 94 global megacities got together and used the data from IPCC and the World Bank to forecast that 1.6 billion people living in over 970 world cities would be regularly exposed to extreme high temperatures by 2050. Now, in light of all this information, which is coming to you through the media, from scientists and international organizations, I want to ask you my first question through the application. Please open the application, find the name of this panel, and locate the first question. That question is, how much do you believe, how strongly do you believe that technology will save mankind from the climate crisis? On a scale of 1 to 5, how strongly do you believe that technology will save the day? And as you answer, and we wait for your results to tally on screen, I would like to ask my panelists the same question. How strongly do each of you believe that technology will save the day, and why do you believe it? Martyna, could you start us off?
Yeah, sure. Yep, thank you. So, in my very, very humble opinion, I just think that technology is just a tool. I think that we need to find a balance between the technology, which can be a solution, and between putting limitations on our overconsumption. Only those two things as a mixture, as a combo, can work.
Do you hear?
Yeah.
Right now it's working. The question is different. Do we have another option not to do it? Because during the last decades, from my perspective, we were very much focused on the consumption, innovation, competition, how to deliver the growth, how to deliver the value for the investors. And it is our credit to the next generations. And from my perspective, there's no other options. The future needs to be green, and we have the tools.
So that would be a yes. You do believe that technology will save us. Thank you. Aleksandra Przegalińska from MIT.
Yes, well, thank you. I guess my view on that is more balanced than it used to be. So I was way more techno-deterministic, and I did believe that we need technology to solve different problems that we've created, and that's the only way to address it. And I do agree with you that there is no other way actually to address some of them now. But I also do believe that we need spaces without technology. So in many ways, I think technology does solve problems and it can save the day, but also we need some technological absence, right? So we need spheres, let's say some sort of areas of our lives and activities where technology just will not be present, and that will be just fine.
Thank you. Pani Dyrektor.
Good morning, everyone. Well, technological progress in the last years was astonishing. Nevertheless, I do not think we do have technology that is solving the real problem, meaning capturing emission, delivering negative emissions of billions of tons per year that will actually solve the problems within the time span that we have, but because we are speaking about 10, 20, maybe 30 years. And I don't believe that market forces within which the technology works are actually solving the climate issue. We do need structural change, and the structural change means the other way of our life, consumption, production, ways of transporting goods and people. And for such change to happen, we need bold political decisions. And in politics, status quo is very difficult to overcome, because politicians respond to people. People do want change only when they feel they are in a necessity. This is actually a quote from Jean Monnet. And they recognize the necessity only when the crisis is upon them. So I do believe that we need to finally recognize that the crisis is now. And that is only way to overcome the issue.
So that would be a maybe
No.
Technology will save us?
That's no. That's
It's a
actually no.
Thank you.
It means it's not the way of things.
Okay, I'm
Kamil,
pessimistic.
Wyszkowski.
In one sentence, I'm pessimistic too. Simply, we are losing that battle. As Greta says, science is crystal clear where we are with climate crisis, and in addition to we are simply precisely knowing that the source of energy and the whole energy mix, the global energy mix, is simply based on coal, oil, and gas, at least till 2060. So we are in an energy trap. So from that perspective, potential solution could be technology, but we need some, breakthrough, some, unbelievable change in the whole concept related to energy sources. Without that, we lost. We lost.
So
that
that's
battle.
a maybe.
It's very pessimistic, I know, but that we simply have a consensus around the globe. So all scientists simply confirming the same the same figures. Temperature is growing. We are consuming coal, oil, and gas. Energy mix is stable, so unfortunately stable in a bad sense. So we are lost.
Well, I'm going to ask you to keep the microphone because I have an additional question for you. And that is, I don't know if you guys have ever read the book Factfulness. It was a bestseller of the last 2 or 3 years. It's a book that talks about how most of us don't really understand world problems. And most of them are in a much better place than we know. We have a lot of misconceptions that impact our thinking. And I spoke to one of the authors of this book at a conference last year. I said, okay, so you have figured out how many misconceptions we have about the problems we're facing. So what is the one biggest problem that is actual, factual, that you see, that is the most difficult to solve in your opinion? And you know what she said? She said international cooperation. Could you speak to where you think we can, what difference we can make, what change we can make so that global cooperation improves in time to meet the global crisis challenge?
What we need, and in fact, Greta, she even very precisely show what is simply needed. We need a global shame therapy for global leaders. That's what we need, and that shame therapy is simply based on targets, which should be implemented by country by country. We know precisely where we should be based on Paris Agreement. We know since 2015 that we have a global agreement, so all member states, even US, agreed that we have to very fast go out from this energy trap. In addition to that, we know exactly for what we should spend money, which is provided to UN system based on various trust funds. So this international cooperation, as you said, that's a potential solution. And fortunately, United Nations is the only organization which is able to invite all member states in December every year. Since we have this year we have COP number 25. So since 25 years, we are trying to build this global consensus about the climate crisis. I joined UN in 2002. My first training was about data from NASA. We know since, let's say, not always, but since 70s. And we know precisely where we are in this temperature model, again, prepared by NASA, by scientists there, which is confirmed by all other space agencies, universities, polytechnics, and other institutions. And we know it since early 90s that situation is really, really bad. So our hope, of course, is to talk with global leaders, with head of states, and ask them to implement what we are presenting as an optimal model for us, for Homo sapiens, to simply to survive. And what is really, I don't know, even if not funny, but sometimes it's very funny when we have a chance to discuss with Danielists, simply people who still don't believe with the science. Also in Poland, we have this type of decision makers. And that's something we should do all together, everyone here. If I could ask you personally for something, please take a look on NASA webpage dedicated on climate crisis. That will be your homework. That's my kind request to you. And based on your network, try to convince the others that we have really real problem, and that problem could affect not only you, but also future generations. And these data are even much worse we provided. So not only 1.6 billion, but it's 2 billion, because 1.6 is in cities, but the rest is outside of cities. Most of cities are under seas or oceans, so the level of seas and oceans going up. So in fact, we are facing a global migration crisis because of climate crisis. Yes, so situation is really depressing. I'm personally optimist, so please believe me. But when we was last year, I have to finish the last sentence. When I was listening carefully what Greta was saying in New York, September this year, and when I was observing what the leaders, simply the leaders' reactions, most of them, was a shame. that's this kind of leader we need. So people like Greta and this new young green wave, which is in various cities. So young people, which simply trying to convince politicians that they should be more brave with very unpopular decisions, because all the decisions which are simply changing the energy mix are unpopular, especially in countries like Poland, which are based on coal or other sources of energy which are very damaging for the climate.
Thank you. Okay, let's stay with cities. So, did everybody get the homework? Go on the NASA website, get the facts and share them with your network, because what Mr. Kamil says is most likely to change the impact of politicians on international cooperation is if we push climate deniers out of the public sphere. Did I get you right? Thank you. So, let's stay with cities. There's a lot of proof that according to global tendencies, the majority of populations around the world are flocking to urban centers. That means that national legislation on environment moves much more slowly than what cities can do. Cities move faster. So my question to Pani Director from the city of Warsaw is, do you see cities playing a role in bringing sustainable solutions to life? What cities have you seen that do this, and what needs to happen so that more Polish cities get on this bandwagon?
Well, I do believe in cities for several reasons. As Kamil has mentioned, cities feel most the results of the climate change because they are lying on the rivers, they are lying on the seasides. Cities produce large part of emissions, so they are the source of the problem. And also cities as clusters of people, ideas, technology, they are mostly predestined to actually find a solution of the problem. They have intellectual potential to find these solutions, and they are easier to implement also due to the economic power of the cities than other areas. So cities are the promoters of change, and we can see today how cities are more progressive, or many cities are more progressive than actually states. Cities collaborate within networks, international networks. For instance, Warsaw is part of several such networks, Covenant of Mayors, C40 cities. This is an organization established by Bloomberg for most progressive cities in the world, who actually work together on solutions, including technological solutions, that fight and help cities to find and adapt to climate changes. We see a spate of examples of very good, very innovative solutions in cities, and we can see cities who are, due to the leadership they have, as Kamil mentioned, leadership is really important. Therefore, I said technological change, technology is a means, is a tool for implementing a goal that is set up by politicians, local, regional, national, or international, at international level. Cities have many leaders that actually recognize climate change as a major problem due to the fact that their citizens are actually directly impacted by negative consequences. If you see New Orleans, other cities lying on the seaside level, Copenhagen, they really need to address climate change issues immediately. And they do that. It's easier because of the smaller amount of people, more clear political path sometimes. But yes, I believe that cities will be the leaders of that change.
Is there a particular city that is a benchmark for Warsaw in terms of setting a positive example in this sphere?
Well, we look at other cities. Different cities have different, let's say, strong points. When I see Copenhagen, I see very progressive approach to energy supply, to energy mix. Partially due to the fact that the supply of energy lies largely in the hands of Copenhagen, not Danish government, which makes it easier. The infrastructure also belongs to the city. City has its own turbines. Therefore, the whole cluster of technology important for energy supply and the supply of heat is in the hands of the city authorities. That makes things easier. In Poland, it's a little bit difficult. We look at Berlin, who is progressive in terms of greenery, of sustainability. London makes very bold steps in terms of congestion charge and limiting amount of cars in the city. Similarly, Paris, New York, which is changing, restructuring the center of the city, making it more for pedestrians than for cars, actually safer, better to live. So there's a lot of examples. I do not think there is one example we want to follow. We just pick the best things from all the others.
Thank you very much. Dr. Aleksandra, I want to talk to you about AI because the media has two very schizophrenic attitudes towards artificial intelligence. On the one hand, it's the scariest thing that's come out of the tech industry ever. It's the biggest boogeyman. They will take our jobs, they will take over the world and use human beings as batteries. That's one side. And the other side is, this is our savior. This is the silver bullet that's going to save the world and take us into a brighter future. Can you please give us a reality check? What can AI actually do, and what positive contributions can it make to this global crisis?
Well, I would say that, in fact, this schizophrenic attitude towards AI is very rational in the context of climate change. I do not believe that AI will take over the world anytime soon, but actually, in the context of emissions, for instance, in the context of energy policy, it's a very big challenge. And on the other hand, it is a solution. So we have a bit of a problem here. AI, through many different initiatives or other people that stand behind AI and use AI for all these purposes, can be really beneficial when you think about predicting climate change, proper tracking of climate changes in the world. And in that sense, machine learning and many other disciplines of artificial intelligence can be really very helpful in saying what is exactly happening here and there. You have initiatives like MIT Climate Collab that are doing that really well. And then on top of that, you also have initiatives where AI is used not only to track the change, but also to help in, for instance, saving energy. So I think Google has launched an initiative with DeepMind, where DeepMind, that is very famous because they're the major, I would say, producer of very powerful deep neural networks. And they have proven together in this project that DeepMind can create a neural network that is going to steer energy consumption within Google in such a way that it decreases by 40%. So that's quite significant. If you can use and implement artificial intelligence to decrease, for instance, energy consumption, then that's actually very beneficial. But then you have the other side of the picture that we're actually trying to tackle right now, and that is very problematic, and that's the fact that training these sorts of network is also very much costly in terms of energy. So you have to train a network to be really smart in what it does for around few years, 5-6 years. And it requires huge volumes of data and a lot of power from many different servers, right? If you want to build a network that would process in a way that human brain does, you would have to create a server space that would be a size of Europe, right? So at this point today. So it's really a major problem to bring networks that can then be helpful, because creating them is going to have a negative environmental impact. So currently we're really looking at this balance sheet and we're trying to compare, where are the benefits, where are the downsides, and I think we're really trying to look into the next generation of hardware that would perhaps solve the issue somehow. Some people are looking at quantum, right? So as you know, we're no longer interested in AI just on its own. Everybody's talking about quantum, and actually in the context of energy and climate, it's a good direction, because quantum can be at least partially a solution to the problem of how to efficiently train a network and not to do it in such an energy consuming way. And then some people are saying perhaps we need wetware, perhaps we need some sort of neuromorphic ware that's going to process information in a different way than the one that we've used so far. So there are solutions somewhere on the horizon, but we really need to rush. And I think it's very rightful to put some pressure not only on the academia, but also on the industry, on the technological giants, because they have the resources, they have all the capacity to actually address these issues, right? They have to be involved. Probably we are today in a situation where scientists in the academia are less resourceful and don't have the capacity to create such, let's say, research and development projects of the scale that technological giants can. And so we have to have a collaboration between academia and also the business sector, particularly technology sector, to address these challenges. And we really need to pressurize that to happen, because otherwise we won't have the breakthrough that we need. And currently the schizophrenic approach, as I said at the beginning, is the right one.
Thank you. So academics need more funding to make progress more quickly on computing, on less energy using computing, yeah?
Well, I would say we don't really, I mean, funding is always nice, but we don't really need funding. We need collaboration that is open, that is transparent. We need data that can be used by us, academics, for the purposes that are academic or research-oriented and not only business-oriented. And we need like open channels of collaboration. We also need more pressure from the public, from everyone, to kind of say to those who are in the spotlight, technological giants, we need you to address these issues because you also have the resources. You need to use the knowledge of scientists and your own infrastructure to make it happen.
Thank you. Very useful perspective. And you mentioned manufacturing, which brings us to our remaining two panelists. Mr. Wojciech from 3M represents a global manufacturing company. And I want to know, 3M is unique in having pretty high standards in terms of sustainability. What needs to happen to get the wider industry more committed to spending more money, investing money, in manufacturing in a way that has a lighter ecological footprint? What can we do to make manufacturing more responsible about the environment?
Thank you very much for this question. As you mentioned, 3M, it's a very big global company with the history of 100 years on the market. So at the very beginning, our approach was focused on the science and the new technologies. So we invest a lot in this kind of development. And we recognize, as most probably majority of the smart and successful companies, the trend is changing. The new technologies, the new projects, something which provide us fantastic solutions, it's not enough. And from my perspective, there is, as I mentioned at the very beginning, there is no choice. I mean that if we want to be successful on the market, being very pragmatic, we need to understand the trend. Trend is green. Trend is going in the direction which is eco direction. Otherwise, consumers makes a different decision. Consumers, you guys, create the trends. You make a decision which company invests enough and makes the difference for your life. From the perspective, another perspective, the companies, innovative companies, are very much depend on the talented people, talented employees. And now, new generation, very talented people are not asking just only about the high salary. They understand the value. They understand what they can do for the company. They ask very often during the recruitment process, what you are doing for the environment, how you prevent climate changes, what the company can offer for the society. That's something what is very important to be successful in the business, to attract the talented people by our approach, by our investments. And answering the last question, the last answer, I will tell you, when we discuss what is more expensive, to invest in the pro-ecological solutions or to stay and wait. And for all smart companies, the solution is, and the answer is only one. If you want to be on the market, you need to change your mindset. And the investment, in fact, it's not about the money. Investment is also about the approach and collaboration.
Thank you. So pressure from talent and pressure from consumers is what we need to move manufacturing in a more environmental direction. Now, I realize we're at the end of our time. However, we have not yet heard from Martyna Sztaba, who runs a very innovative, fascinating company that I'd like you guys to get a chance to hear about. So with your permission, I will extend the time of this panel in order to hear also from Martyna. Martyna, the question for you is, you run an innovative, impact-based startup. What needs to happen for more companies like yours to be able to flourish and have an impact on their countries, their communities, and their regions?
So I can talk only from the perspective of impact-based startup, but what does it really mean? So impact-based startup means that we have two goals to reach. One is, of course, solid business model, and we need to earn money. And second is that we need to solve, we need to find a solution on environmental or important social problems. What we really need is money from the venture capital, which need to change their perspective. Because if you see at the past, you will see that they mostly invested in items, in products, which did not change our lives. Like how many applications which will deliver your food you need more? Like how many Uber do you need? How many Airbnb do we need more? We need things, we need solutions which will clean our air, which will give us fresh water, and will somehow help us with plastic recycling and so on. So my personal wish is that venture capital and angel investors and investing companies will just change a little bit their approach to the side of impact-based companies. I would say that this is the most important.
Thank you. Okay, one last question to all of you. Please get out your application and look at the last question, which is, how affected are you by climate grief? Which means, how scared are you about the future regarding the climate? And my panelists, just a quick last round. If you could say, what do you do to keep yourself hopeful and optimistic about the future? What gives you hope? Just starting with Martyna this time, everybody, just a word or two.
So in my free time, I run a podcast called Moderator. It's about sustainability and circular economy. So if you have some free time, you can listen to the podcast and get some knowledge.
Thank you.
We limited as a family very much the consumption, and we are very aware what we are buying. I'm really proud. I am father of 3 daughters, and you know, they are teenagers, and they are the biggest challengers for me in my private life.
Well, I have to say that for me, what kind of cheers me up every day is obviously the young generation. I teach students. I'm also a mom. And I see that the approach of these people is just different, right? So I guess we need to learn from them. My daughter's first words were also circling around recycling. She was very much interested in the topic. And she is the most consequent recycler that I know. So I do believe in the young generation.
I do lead a sustainable life. I try to cycle. I do cycle, use the public transport and things like that. But I am privileged to have an impact and define the Warsaw policy for climate change, meaning the adaptation and making city adapt basically to climate change, but also transforming it into the neutral emission city. And I think that's the main role when I would think of what I have to do, what is my mission. So I try to do as much as I can during the time given.
Thank you. Pani Kamilu.
Educate and spread the knowledge. That's what is, I think, the biggest advice also for all of us. Everyone knows someone. If we are using brain a proper way, that's the best way how we could fight climate crisis.
Okay, thank you very much. Use your brains. Faith in the young generation. Thank you to all my panelists and to you.